man. First time, the inaugural session. It's going good, man. How about you?
Not bad. So if you're wondering where Adam Scher is, he's throwing out the first pitch at the Baltimore Orioles game, and I was gonna tweet and tell everyone like, hey, if you're there, get video of it. But nobody goes to Baltimore Orioles games, so I I don't necessarily know if that'd be the case. But do you ever listen to the Howard Stern show?
Yeah, yeah.
The Baba Booey, Gary Delabate's first pitch, where it was like the worst first pitch ever. I was hoping that Adam could pass that, could beat that out, and it'd be all over Twitter tonight. It'd be a beautiful thing.
Damn, is it worse than 50 Cent?
Yeah, yeah. 50s was bad, but
Wow.
this was bad. So I love you, Adam, but I'm 100% not rooting for you to do well at all. Anyway, we got 14 games today, and I think do me a favor, move your camera up a little bit if you get a chance. Perfect, perfect. There you go. 14 games, and it's hot as hell on the East Coast. I would imagine in the Midwest too, but looking at some of these temperatures and just walking outside today was brutal. So listen to some of this. You've got 90 degrees in Pittsburgh, 96 in Baltimore, feels like 106, 91 in New York, 92 in Cleveland, 93 in Cincinnati, like 92 in Minnesota. The temperatures are insane, man. It's 108 in Arizona, but I hope they close that roof. So all of these East Coast games, the temperatures are soaring today.
Yeah, I mean these numbers do play a factor too with the run scoring. I mean, even as of late, a lot of from like a sports betting perspective, the overs are just going over in every single game, and that's just due to the weather. So, I mean, these games that are in the high middle 90s, it's really hard to pass up, especially if they have a high run total as far as over 10 and a half, 11 runs in the game.
All right, let's get right into it. We've got 14 games to get to here. New York Yankees, Colorado Rockies, J.A. Happ, Kyle Freeland. Happ's seen his strikeout rate decline significantly this year, but he's still going to have ownership because outside of Coors Field, the Rockies are literally one of the worst teams in the league. Um, and it's been that way for a while, at least since the start of the season. So, I mean, I think it's a very interesting spot for both sides. Of course, we'll get into the Yankees bats in a second, but you've got one, two, three, four lefties in the lineup, and then you've got five righties. But outside of Story and Arenado, like Desmond, Reynolds, and Ionetta are hardly concerning. So I see both sides of this one for Hap and for the Rockies. What are you looking at here?
I think you nailed it perfectly. I see both sides too because Hap, from a strikeout perspective, he's just not there this year. But Rockies are striking out 30% against left-handed pitching on the road, and then but Hap also is giving up a 255 ISO to righties at home and a 358 WOBA. So I like all those right-handers that you just mentioned in the Rockies lineup, and especially Iannetta, Reynolds. If you're looking for cheaper bats that have potential upside, I mean that could be a route too. So I think you're right. Both sides is the way to go in this.
All right, so Yankees have the highest total on the slate at 7.1. Uh, Again, dude, it's hot as shit on the East Coast, and it's clearly going to impact these games. Feels like 101 degrees at Yankee Stadium. So obviously, and it's humid too. So it doesn't help J.A. Happ, which is why I think both of us still have some interest in the Rockies given Happ's ownership on DraftKings, by the way, not elsewhere, mostly on DraftKings. Uh, but the Yankees against Kyle Freeland, who has just struggled all season long, particularly against right-handed hitter or hit it.
Yeah, I like the Yankees actually, and they're projected to be the highest top stack across each single platform, DraftKings, FanDuel, and Yahoo, on the Osmo top stack projections. And what's interesting about this though is that they're the seventh or eighth highest rated in ownership. So we're looking at the top stack here potentially for the night, not necessarily being highly owned compared to other teams out there, which even puts more emphasis on why I like the Yankees tonight.
Yeah, and it's funny because they're expensive, but they're not egregiously expensive. Like they're definitely playable, especially given the three or four pitchers in that 6K range that are all rosterable today.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, looking at the lineup up and down, I do like Judge a lot. I like Sanchez a lot. And then I even like probably Luke Voigt, who's probably not going to be owned as much as Encarnacion. And then even Ursula. Ursula is great against left-handers, so Ursula could be a sneaky spot too in the eighth hole there.
All right. Are the Yankees right now your top stack?
Oof. I would say top three right now. I'm still debating that because lineups aren't due yet. So they're in the top three right now. They could be top depending upon over the next hour, hour and a half.
All right. Let's move on then. By the way, I know it looks like I'm in a cave, but there's nothing. I got a light on. I got I got another light on my face. The sun's coming in to my right now so badly that I don't know what it does. It actually makes it worse, right? Because
It's the darker dive.
the darker dive, I like that. Yeah. At night, when the sun's down, perfectly fine. I don't know, man. What are you going to do? Absolutely nothing. As long as you can hear my voice, we're good. Let's talk about Baltimore and Boston. Adam Scher throwing out the first pitch. I don't know if we're going to see it, but God, I hope we do. David Price, John Means. Does David Price stand out to you at all? He's kind of in no man's land, just being that you have all these good 10K plus guys, and then you have all these 6K guys that I don't want to say are good, but in good spots. And then the mid range feels kind of depleted. Where do you rank Price today in terms of preference?
I like Price, but it really all depends because if I'm going to go with Price at 9,500, it's like I could also pivot up just a little bit and look at like maybe Degrom, who I probably like a little bit more, and Bieber, and even Ryu. So I just don't know if Price is someone I like to go after right now, and I think that's just based off of I just don't have trust in it right now. I just don't. It's just a route that I don't want to go right now.
Yeah, I'm not feeling it either. I wanted to like Price. I think he's fine, but I just don't know if it's necessary in this spot. Uh, Baltimore on the other side, John Means has not been bad. Hell, he's an all-star for whatever that's worth, but he's been pretty decent. And he's got a very good changeup. But now he's got to go into the Lions' den against this Boston team. Like I'd said, again, I'm going to keep mentioning this because I think it's super important for these games. 96 degrees at first pitch in Baltimore. Feels like 104. He might have heat stroke and not even worry about facing any hitters. I mean, this could be rough. What do you think? What do you think about Boston bats here against John Means?
I did like Boston bats originally, and then I looked into a little bit more, and Means at home is pretty solid, especially to right-handers. I mean, he's given up a 138 ISO. So, and also with Means, he's played Boston, I think, 3 times this year. And I don't want to play the narrative batter versus pitcher, but he just hasn't given up much power to them. And he hasn't really given up much power at all in the season. And this is a big thing when it comes to rostering and stacking teams. So the only reason why I would go after Boston is one, because they can put up runs if they get it together. And other than that, I mean, they are playing in a hitter-friendly stadium and the weather's hot. So, but outside of that, I think I would probably go to Means more if I needed to. Maybe like on DraftKings as a sneaky SP2 if I'm going, two higher price pitchers. But Boston bats aren't necessarily on my radar compared to some other teams that we'll get into.
Okay. Yeah, and they are not going to come cheap either. I mean, some of them are reasonable, but man, Bogarts is through the roof. Rafael Devers with the lefty-lefty matchup, really expensive. Christian Vasquez is 4,700 on DraftKings, which seems pretty unrealistic here at that price, unless you're just trying to be really different. The top stack tool too. There are, but just, by the way, on awesomemode.com, if you use the promo code Deeper Dive, you get 50% off your first month of Awesemo Plus membership. Ownership projections, the top stack tool, player projections, fantasy cruncher, all the tools that Alex Baker, Awesemo himself, developed and uses every day. All the behind the paywall articles and DFS content for literally every sport that's offered for DFS. Yes, including WNBA, tennis, and summer league. Got it all. Use the promo code Deeper Dive. One word, get 50% off your first month subscription of Awesemo Plus. All right, Boston. So they're actually right now looking like they are going to have quite a bit of ownership across the board. On DraftKings and FanDuel, 9%, 8.1% respectively, which is higher than the top stack probability altogether. So I don't think this is a bad stack at all, but I do think there are so many good ones on this slate that I don't disagree with you. maybe Boston isn't much of a priority today.
Yeah, I mean, they're also, especially on DraftKings, 2.9% top value. So we have other teams on this slate, such as maybe like a Cincinnati or a St. Louis or even a Yankees team that prevent more top value and will have less ownership and have still that same range of being a top stack. So from a price perspective, it's harder to maybe put in like a Ryu with them as compared to some other teams. So it's just one thing that probably I'm not on high enough as maybe I should be, but that's just the route I'm going to go tonight.
All right. Do you have any interest in Baltimore bats against Price? I know it looked like there was some ownership on guys like Richie Martin down there at minimum salary on DraftKings, but it seems like most of these guys are just, if anything, squeezing the cheapest possible player into your lineup.
I think if you're max entering, I don't think there's anything wrong with maybe sneaking in one or two lineups with a Baltimore stack. But outside of that, I mean, I wouldn't play them in higher priced dollar tournaments. No way.
So the next game on our list is Pittsburgh and Philly. And if one team stands out to me today, I mean, a lot of teams stand out to me, but if one stands out to me as an interesting one, tops their stack ownership actually has come up a little bit, but it's pretty insignificant. Is Pittsburgh against Jake Arrieta? Uh, Jake Arrieta has just been utter garbage against left-handed hitting. I was hoping that Pittsburgh was going to run out the same lineup they did a few days ago that had 5 lefties in the top 6, and that's exactly what we have. Frazier, Reynolds as a switch hitter, Marte, Bell, Colin Moran, and Corey Dickerson. This could spell a lot of trouble for Jake Arrieta. And when you really dig into these numbers, man, more than 2 home runs per 9, a 220 ISO, 14% strikeouts. He's been really bad against lefties this year.
Yeah, and lefties on the road, it's even worse. I think he's given up a 4.15 WOBA right now to lefties on the road on the
Awful.
season, astronomical, and a 290 ISO. So Josh Bell, I think, is a great play. I like Frazier, I like Reynolds, and I really like Corey Dickerson tonight. He has great power against righties. Arrieta, like you said, giving up 2 home runs per 9. I wish this game was in Philly. But outside of that, there's really nothing else that I see wrong with not going with Pittsburgh. And the weather's going to be hot too.
Yeah, I don't. The only thing is the park, but I'm really not even that worried about it. Just because it's not a good park doesn't mean that there is an opportunity to put up big numbers. It's humid there. It's 90 degrees. Uh, that should mitigate things for this team. And you mentioned the guys I like, but dude, I'll throw out all of the top 6 in this lineup. I just think it could be one of those nights where they go off against Jake Arrieta. On the other side, you've got Kingery, who's actually looked really solid this season. Segura, Harper is turning things around, at least with runners on base. Hoskins, Romuto, Hernandez, Franco, Adam Hainsley with his first home run the other day. Jordan Lyles has kind of been hit or miss this season. I don't really know where well, I do. I don't have much interest in Philly. Are you going to Philly against Lyles today? And if so, why?
Uh, Not much. I mean, they're probably one of the teams that I'm overlooking that I'm not maybe putting too much into right now, and that's just because I like so many other teams outside of Philadelphia. But yeah, I mean, Lyles is not necessarily the greatest pitcher, can give up power and can get rocked. Phillies do have a potent offense at times when they can string it together, but it's just not. I'd rather go Pittsburgh over Philadelphia in this game as far as bats are concerned.
Yeah, me too. And like I said, Pittsburgh, they may have come up a little bit on the stack tool, but still only 3% ownership. I mean, it's not that high at all. When you look at it compared to other teams, it's like bottom half. So really not worried about that. Anything else in this game we should talk about?
No, I mean, I think we pretty much solved everything on this.
All right, Tampa Bay, Chicago White Sox, Ronaldo Lopez, Brandon McKay. Man, this kid's good, no question, but he hasn't thrown more than 86 pitches in a start, even when he went through 6 innings with 81 pitches or through 5 innings with 83 pitches. What do you make of McKay here, who is pretty cheap on Yahoo? Everywhere else, he seems like reasonably, maybe a tad bit overpriced. It's hard to tell, given only 3 starts.
Yeah, I mean the sample size is small, but the White Sox, they just struggle putting up runs and they strike out a lot. I think against left-handed pitching on the road, they're striking out. I think top five in the league, or fifth worst, excuse me, at 26%. Uh, that's also a hitter's ballpark, more so than it is than Chicago Stadium. So I like Mckay, especially on FanDuel. He's a little bit cheaper. So I think it's a great matchup. I think it's a pitcher to roster. I think the strikeout upside is there. And the White Sox bats don't scare me as much in this matchup as maybe I originally thought.
Yeah, they're not that scary at all. And nice job. Last I looked, this is a spot where the Rays are massive favorites,
Yeah.
like monster favorites. 3.4 total for the White Sox is the fourth lowest on this slate, or third lowest on the slate. They're 217 favorites. Like there's definitely a lot to like. It's just what do we get with his pitch count? Like, is he going to be limited? Because if so, it's hard to pay that much for him.
Yeah, I think the pitch count is probably the only thing that concerns us. But the thing is if we're not as scared as the White Sox offense compared to some other teams, especially that bottom 4 or 5 batters in the lineup, and if they're not getting on base and he's limiting those full counts, maybe we could get 6, possibly 7 innings out of him. I think the only thing concerned is for FanDuel, you're wanting him to get those 6 innings for a quality start. So I mean that's the only thing. But I just don't see the White Sox in a position here to put men on base, to drag high pitch counts. I really like Mckay in this matchup.
Okay. Yeah, and I think a big thing here is McKay's ownership is not going to be high from what I've seen anywhere.
Is it under 5%?
Last I looked, let me check again. So on FanDuel, he's at he's come up 11. It's still not crazy, but 11%.
Okay.
On DraftKings, damn, okay, let me take that back. His ownership's come up significantly throughout the day. Dude, listen to this because I imported somewhere else. McKay on DraftKings earlier in the day when I was writing the deep dive, 3%.
Yeah.
So pretty significant. I think being around 15, 18 is probably more reasonable. I was really surprised to see it as low as it was earlier.
I think that's changing because also the weather in Detroit is playing a role with the decision making because of Stroman. Because I was definitely high on Stroman up until probably the last hour or so, with this weather being a concern, and they're in the same price range on both platforms, FanDuel and DraftKings. So people are probably wondering if maybe Mckay now is the better SP2 or the better pitcher to go on FanDuel based on probably this weather situation that's going on.
It's possible, but Stroman's ownership was sub 1% on DraftKings earlier.
Is it still that low?
I don't know. But I'm saying earlier when McKay was 3%, Stroman was only 0.4%. So it's not like McKay's taking Stroman's ownership. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Okay. Oh yeah, I mean, I guess you're right. I guess you're right. Maybe it's just something that maybe I thought, but they're probably looking into the matchup more, so that I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, I have no idea. Unless there's any significant weather elsewhere that I don't know about. But yeah, that's it. J.A. Happ's ownership projection has come down a lot. Okay, here you go. Bieber's has come down 6%. Haps has come down 8%. Molly's come down 5%. Yeah, I mean that. Oh, and Verlander has come down 7%. So it looks like he's just taking from everybody.
Yeah, Stroman was at a little bit over 15 earlier. Now he's at 5 for FanDuel. So I guess yeah. So yeah, he's definitely taken away from a lot.
For FanDuel? Okay, yeah, I was talking about DraftKings, but
Okay.
yeah, definitely different there. Any batters here that you like against Lopez?
I mean, how could you not like the Rays in this
Yeah.
situation? Um, I mean, across the board, uh, I mean, he outside his last start, I mean, he has just been getting destroyed and rocked all year, and he gives up a lot of power, especially to the left-hand side. So this Rays team, I really like a lot. I love Nate Lowe. I love Troy, love Meadows, Kiermaier, I love. And then, I mean, I even love Yandy Diaz. So I'm probably gonna have a lot of different stack combinations here against Lopez. I just can't see how Lopez can go into Tampa and not get rocked. It's just a great matchup for a team that does hit right-handers pretty solid.
Yeah, I don't see how he doesn't get lit up either. I mean, one of the only things is, and obviously this is the furthest from being an end all be all situation, but uh, you know, with this game, being in Tampa Bay, you got the roof closed and the temperatures are neutralized, but it still shouldn't matter much. Ronaldo Lopez has allowed 23 home runs on the season. He doesn't discriminate. He's given up 11 to lefties, 12 to righties. He loves everyone. Which, by the way, we have a few pitchers on this slate that have given up a ton of home runs. Verlander leads the league in home runs allowed. Did you know that, by the way? It's crazy.
I did, which is a wild stat.
Crazy. Mike Leakes at 24. Ronaldo Lopez at 23. J.A. Happ's allowed 20. So this could be a very high scoring night. I mean, obviously, I would expect Verlander to start settling things down. But I'm with you on Tampa Bay. It's a really good spot. What's their total here? 5.4. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Which is not bad for them being at home.
Right, exactly. But and again though, I don't know how much it plays into it, like in the decision making here. Cause well, to be fair, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 teams with totals of over 5.
It's insane.
Baseball's changing, isn't it?
It really is. That weather's playing a huge role tonight in that.
Yeah, and that juiced ball doesn't hurt either. Just ask Justin. No, you don't buy it?
Nah. I mean, come on. Yeah, he throws a lot of fastballs. Sometimes he throws them over the plate. I mean, they're bound to get hit.
Horse
But
shit, Chris. The ball's juiced. Get
all right,
on
well,
board, baby. It's the
I
truth.
need a little bit more. I need a little bit more to prove it.
All right. I'll run some tests.
Yeah, give me some more data.
What are we using? Rawlings baseballs? I think that's what it is. Cleveland and Kansas City, Bieber and Montgomery. I got to tell you, man, Bieber's ownership coming down only has me liking him more. I know it's a sketchy spot, not because of the matchup, but because you have Verlander, because you have Degrom. Totally understandable if you were, you wanted to avoid somebody like Bieber. But listen to this. He's got the highest strikeout rate on the slate, fourth highest K rate in the league among all qualified pitchers, third lowest xFIP in the league behind Garrett Cole and Chris Sale. I'll keep going. 33.9% call plus swinging strike rate, which is insane. The dude's nasty. He's got 25% whiff rates, not whiff percent, whiff rates on his curveball and on his slider. He's basically a minus 300 favorite. And about Alberto Mondesi is on the IL. So I don't know, man. I know the temperatures are hot and everything, but with his ownership coming down now to the eighth highest owned on DraftKings and on FanDuel, obviously it's going to be less because he's super expensive, but 7%. I have interest in Bieber here. Where are you at on this game?
No, I like Bieber. It's a great matchup. Royals rank I think bottom 5 in ISO against right-handed pitching.
Yeah,
I think
169. It's pretty rough, and that's where he struggles with the power.
Yeah, so I mean, they're Mondesi out of the lineup is pretty huge because one, he gets on base. Sometimes he puts himself in scoring position with stolen bases. So now you're limiting someone who definitely does play a role with runners on base. There's not too much power, especially at the bottom of the order there. I like Bieber. I just wish his price was a little bit lower. But with that being said, there's a lot of upside here. He does get strikeouts, and what we look for in pitching is someone who can definitely throw a lot of Ks. There are some people in the Royals lineup that just don't scare me. Arteaga, Lopez, Starling, Valora. I mean, basically those last 4 guys, there's no power there. I think this is an easy stretch of at-bats for Bieber. So there's a lot of upside here in this matchup.
I agree. And if there's one thing, you kind of mentioned it, if there's one thing this team can burn you with is speed. First of all, there isn't as much speed in this lineup as you would normally see. And second of all, Bieber's allowed 10 stolen bases in 233 career innings. So That hasn't been a very big issue for him whatsoever. He does a pretty good job of holding runners. What are your thoughts on Cleveland against Mike Montgomery, who was recently traded to the Kansas City Royals? Are you how high are you on Cleveland? Because earlier when I looked, and I'm assuming this had to have changed a little bit, but on the top stack tool, Cleveland has a way higher top stack probability than their ownership on DraftKings. Definitely more on FanDuel, not as much, and a lot more on Yahoo as well. Are you on board with Cleveland, or are you looking elsewhere?
I think Cleveland is a great play. I just think that their ownership's not as high because of price. And so the price is probably scaring a few people off. But I think the righties in the lineup are the ones to target here. I think Lindor is a great play. I think Mercado, Santana and Ramirez. And I really do like in the catcher position, Roberto Perez. I think these five here, even Luplow, I'll consider. But outside of them, I mean, I'm not really big on Jake Bauers or Nyquin. And Montgomery is really more easy to target with righties, excuse me, instead of lefties. So those righties in the lineup definitely give me a lot of appeal in this matchup.
Yeah, I think you're right. The Lindor price has come up, which kind of sucks because he had been really cheap. But just the idea that when you're getting them at a pretty pricey spot, you're going to see less ownership, especially on a night where like you have expensive Boston team, you have a pretty expensive Yankees team. You know, a lot of quality teams with high totals are expensive. So it seems like Cleveland's just falling by the wayside, which also kind of feels like a pretty opportune spot to play them.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think that's why I do like Cleveland and why I would want to target them is because they have a high implied run total. They're one of the highest projected on Osmo's top stack tool. And you combine those together with not having much ownership, it's definitely somewhere I want to go with constructing lineups, especially if I'm doing multi-entry lineups. So this is a great play. I mean, outside of price, I think there's a lot of upside here, and I think this could be a sneaky stack that if you find the pitching combination that fits well with them, it could be a great team.
All right. Makes sense to me. Anything else? I think it's pretty much just Cleveland and Bieber from this one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any KC, so there's really nothing to
No,
talk
I
about there.
certainly don't have Mike Montgomery. Uh, Cleveland or Cincinnati and St. Louis. Tyler Mahle, Adam Wainwright, another heavy platoon splits pitcher in Tyler Mahle. He's going to get ownership today, and I think justifiably so. What are your thoughts on Mahle down here, specifically on DraftKings at $6,000?
Oof, man. I really don't have much to say about Molly because I have a lot of Cardinals tonight.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean Molly, definitely upside there, especially with the strikeouts. And you're right about the platoon splits. Both of these pitchers actually have drastic platoon splits, which Adam Wainwright struggles heavily on the road compared to at home, especially against lefties. So, but when it comes to Molly, I can't really say much because I'm not rostering him. I'm on the other side. I have a lot of Cardinals bats.
So it's super hot and humid there. That doesn't help. But Molly's held his own at Cincy, so I'll take a different stance on this one. This is probably the best. This is probably the best lineup Molly could get because there's only three lefties in the lineup, and it's Tommy Edman, Dexter Fowler, and Kolten Wong. Sure, Edman's fine, had the grand slam yesterday, all that good stuff. But Dexter Fowler, Kolten Wong, yeah, I'm good. To me, that could they, look. Is he that bad against lefties? He is. Molly's really bad against lefties. But I also think there's an opportunity to put up some solid numbers here because this Cardinals active roster is bottom three in the entire league. WOBA, ISO, WRC plus against righties. And now, with the lineup that we have today, I see some upside in Molly. 29.2% K rate against righties. He's got 6 of them today. He's got a pitcher. I'm willing to jump on there. And I think one of the biggest reasons is where his ownership was higher earlier today, now it's actually coming down everywhere. So we will see which one of us ends up being right on this one. It could go. Look, I'll tell you this
I
one.
don't disagree with you. I think you're that's fair judgment across the board when it comes to Molly. I think for roster construction purposes and for ballpark and for price points of the batters, it's a matchup where I'm tending to lean more towards St. Louis with the way that I want to go tonight rather than rostering Molly. But I could see Molly in a DraftKings lineup for sure as an SP2.
Sure. And look, I don't disagree with what you're saying at all. If he's going to have around 20% ownership on a night where it's 94 degrees in Cincinnati, bad things are certainly prone to happen. I'm not pretending that's not the case at all. But I do think if you were looking for a good lineup for Molly, a 6 righty lineup is exactly what you're looking for. So,
Yeah, I could agree with that.
what about Wainwright in Cincinnati?
Man, Wainwright is just not the same as he is at home. I mean, he is just getting rocked on the road, and especially to lefties. He has like a 240 ISO against lefties. I do like Joey Votto tonight. I do like Winker. I wish Dietrich was in the lineup. It would give me more reason to stack the
I
Reds.
agree.
And I'm confused why. I mean, Dietrich has been struggling though. I think he has 1 home run in the last 2 months or a month and a half, if I'm not mistaken. So, and maybe that's why he's not in the lineup. But
No, he's hurt.
Oh, he's hurt. He's hurt now.
Yeah, he's got a knee injury.
Okay.
He
But
got
I
hit
do
by a
like I do
pitch
like
like
the thought of pivoting to Scooter Gannett. I don't mind him, especially if I'm trying to fill out a stack with the Reds. So I do like the Reds tonight. They're highly projected on Osmo Stack Tools. I know that ownership will be there. Ballpark favors them. The weather favors them. It's hard not to roster them, especially with their price points. I do like the Reds tonight.
Okay. So this is a game that you definitely are going to have some offense in that might go overlooked in that respect from other people.
Yeah. I think this is a game if you're wanting to target offenses and cheap bats and there's a high upside there. Yeah, I think this is a game to do so.
All right. Sounds good to me. We're through 6. We got 8 to go. We're going to make it. So a couple of these games, once you get towards the end, there's just not a whole lot there.
Yeah.
Detroit and Toronto. Here's a game that you had mentioned earlier. Now, you had mentioned what, weather here?
Yeah, I mean, there's a probability here for storms to come in. I'm not sure if that's true yet with the radar, but I like Stroman here. There's high upside. He's fairly priced, especially on FanDuel, not so much on DK. But Detroit's just not good. They strike out a ton. I think this is a matchup that favors Stroman heavily, and I hope that the weather doesn't play a role in that because I can't roster pitchers in weather concerned areas. It's just too much of a risk.
Yeah, so from what I'm seeing now, it definitely seems like Detroit could be in some trouble. So definitely worth paying attention to. And one of the problems with Stroman is like if he goes 4 innings and it gets delayed, he's probably not going to have 4 innings and 8 strikeouts, Like he's the type of guy that generally needs to get pretty deep into a game in order to give you what you need from him. Look, it's Detroit. I'm certainly not saying it's a bad spot at all. I am saying this much, though. If it clears up, and I think you pretty much pointed this out, Stroman on FanDuel is a really good play. Stroman on DraftKings, I have zero interest in at 9K.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. You can't really roster him because at that point, I'm probably going to pivot to Mckay to save a little bit of money on DK for that matchup. But even at 9K, I mean, he's not he's not a premier dominant pitcher. But on FanDuel, I mean, at 6,800, it's hard to not go and roster him in that situation.
I agree. Definitely looking like you'd get a quality start there. And the thing is, like with Stroman, you're hoping for 6 or 7 strikeouts. At 6,800, that's very doable. At 9K, 6 or 7 strikeouts, I don't feel good about that prospect. So I definitely think it's site specific, but agree with you that on FanDuel, it makes a lot of sense. Plus, you can load up on hitters if that's the case. What about what about Toronto against Detroit? One thing to mention here is Toronto's going to get massive ownership for sure, especially, really only on DraftKings. Because on Yahoo specifically, they're wildly overpriced. On FanDuel, they're reasonably priced. And on DraftKings, they're egregiously underpriced. So this is totally different across every site for the Blue Jays.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I think it's definitely a great matchup for them. I do. Zimmerman's just not good. But what stands out to me here is when I'm rostering teams and I'm looking at how they match up and really what has the pitcher done over the course of the year. Zimmerman has given up 22 extra base hits all year, 7 of those for home runs. So he's not giving up much power. He gives up a lot of singles, a lot. And if he is minimizing, base runners in a situation where he's only giving up singles and not giving them much power, I don't know if Toronto is a team that I really want to, go all in as compared to maybe other teams tonight that represent a lot of power, even though Toronto does possess that in their lineup in some areas. But in this matchup, I just don't know if it's maybe someone I'd like to roster as much against. Maybe if it was someone else like Spencer Turnbull, who does give up a lot of power, that would be a different situation. But when I look at this matchup and I look for home runs and I look for extra base hits and I look for a team who's going to score a lot, they just don't all add up for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I think the biggest thing here, and I don't disagree with anything you said, on FanDuel and Yahoo, I just don't see the point of paying for them. On DraftKings, their ownership is almost twice as high as the top stack probability. And if anyone's not a premium member and they wonder what we're talking about, I'll explain quickly because it's probably important that we mention it since we talk about this all the time. The top stack probability is just the percentage probability, percentage chance that they are the top stack on the day. Ownership is the aggregate ownership of the team. Their top stack probability is 7%. Ownership's 13%. So the ratio just sucks there, Chris.
Yeah, it does. And I think the way to look at it, if you're going on DraftKings to roster them, is you're rostering and stacking them strictly because you're picking 2 top price point pitchers. And that gives you the flexibility to just use these cheap Toronto bats to fill in as a lineup. But outside of that, the ratios, like you said, they just don't add up. And it's hard to roster them with that when the numbers aren't working in favor with you, they're working against you.
Atlanta, Washington, Patrick Corbin, Julio Teheran. This is actually a game that I don't have that much interest in, and maybe I'm on an island here. I know the Washington Nationals are definitely going to have some ownership, justifiably so. I have no issues with that. And then on the other side, Corbin's a good pitcher. He allows home runs at a pretty average rate. And I guess the big thing is, do you look at some of the discounted price points in this game? Because Atlanta's priced down. Washington, to some extent, is also priced down, at least from where they were. Is that enough to get you on or into this game?
I like the Braves tonight as a surprise stack, and because their prices are down. Corbin is not as great on the road as he is at home. He's given up a 338 WOBA on the road against righties. Really like Ozzie Albies in this matchup, like Acuna. Even Donaldson possesses power against left-handed pitching. But I would say that if you're looking for a surprise team tonight that could potentially go off in hot weather, that faces a pitcher that does struggle on the road, Braves could be that team tonight.
Okay. Who do you like most from him?
I would say Ozzie Albies.
Okay. Yeah, mm-hmm. I think it has to be Albies, right?
Yeah.
Well, actually, I'll say this much. Albies batting 6th at that price specifically is really strange. I'm talking about on DraftKings. Were you talking about elsewhere or 39 on DraftKings?
DraftKings, I think it's somewhat fair, but on FanDuel too, I like him as well.
Yeah. FanDuel, he's 31? Yeah, I think the reason it stands out on DraftKings is because his price just moves all over the place. Like he's 48, 44, 48, 41, 39. Albies is all over the place. It's strange to me that I know it's Corbin, but Albies is so much better against lefties that I actually don't hate him in the middle of the lineup here. And Ronald Acuna too. And of course, anytime Juan Soto is at this price, which is really affordable, I like him as well. I just don't know how much as a team I like both of them. But obviously, the Washington Nationals specifically are definitely going to have some ownership. Atlanta's going to have no ownership whatsoever. Does that play into your decision making a lot here? Just that they're pretty much unowned across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you ever have a time to roster against a high price point pitcher that could be in line to get potentially rocked. But Atlanta does have a great offense though, and they're lower priced, so I do like that. And when there's a team that could put up runs, that have the potential to put up a lot of runs, and they're not going to be owned, and they're in a matchup that maybe kind of favors them, I think this is that area to do so.
Oddly enough, Corbin's been so much worse away from home this season too. 11
Yeah,
of his 14 home runs allowed have come on the road. Um, Hell, maybe things will play well for the Braves today. Temperature in Atlanta, oddly enough, only 81 degrees, but still favorable hitting weather. Let's talk about Minnesota and Oakland. We've got 6 games to go here. Jake Arrieta, Chris Bassett, really high total for Minnesota, just because their splits and their ISO against righties is insanely high. It was 5.9 or 6 earlier. It's down to 5.6, but still projected for a lot of runs here. And then against Odorizzi, Oakland has a 5 implied run total at Minnesota, where temperatures once again are actually eclipsing 90 degrees. Winds blowing out 15 miles per hour to left center field for whatever that's worth. What are you doing here?
is this game going to play, or is the weather still a factor?
So last I saw was let me find it here.
Because this is the one game that I kind of didn't put too much thought into today, and that I'm not really on because it just seemed like this game was going to potentially get postponed or just not even be in play. But if it does play, I don't mind going against Bassett here and rostering the Twins lefties.
All right. Yeah, I'm trying to I had it earlier, but I'm having trouble finding it now. Uh yeah, I don't know. What just get postponed because of rain this Twins game?
Yeah, I guess that there was.
I'm not
Uh,
seeing anything now.
okay, then I mean it could change. It could have changed.
Well, fortunately, we've got a bunch of super sleuths in our Slack chat that will certainly tell me if I'm wrong, and I appreciate it. So if you guys have anything on this game, toss it in the premium Slack chat. Let me know, and I'll make sure to right my wrongs here on the stream. So, okay, let's assume the weather is going to be fine. Go ahead and analyze it that way. I know you just talked about it a little bit, but go a little bit more in depth and we'll move to the next game.
Yeah, so Bassett's really strong against righties. Doesn't give too much power against them, but lefties on the other hand, he does struggle with. And here, I mean, Minnesota is one of the top hitting teams in the league against right-handed pitching. Kepler would definitely be on my radar. I would also like Polanco. Eddie Rosario now back healthy, back in the lineup, batting cleanup. I like that play a lot as well. And then as a sneaky cheap price point for a catcher, Jason Castro, who does have a little bit of power, can hit righties. I do like Castro as well.
Okay. Let's talk about, and I'm assuming you're not on Odorizzi or Oakland here. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, I mean, to be honest with you, there's just other pitchers that I favor tonight heavily, way more than these two. And this is just not a matchup that I think that they will thrive in tonight.
Agreed. Verlander, Mike Minor, Houston, and Texas at Minute Maid Park. One of the lowest totals on the slate is attached to this Houston or Texas Rangers team. 3.2 runs, second lowest on the night. Justin Verlander is one of, let's see, this is pretty crazy too. One of 6 teams that are 200 money line favorites or more, minus 200 or higher. He's minus 214. Like I said, he's allowed a lot of home runs. About 80% of them have been solo shots. Only one of them has come with multiple runners on base. So I really don't worry about that with him and Garrett Cole. They give up a lot of solo blasts, and then they get a ton of strikeouts. Texas Rangers team has a top 3 K rate on their active roster against right-handed hitting or right-handed pitching. What are you doing about this game and Justin Verlander, who's obviously going to get quite a bit of ownership?
Yeah, I love Verlander. Texas strikes out just as much as they do against lefties on the road. They're striking out over 26%. Verlander at home. If he does give up a couple runs, it's probably going to be a couple solo shots to maybe like Gallo or Mazzara. But outside of that, I see Verlander being in control. I see him getting 9, 10 strikeouts. I love Verlander tonight. There's really not much more to say about the matchup.
Okay. Yeah, I like him a lot too. And, I'm always paying attention to what's the lineup they're running out there. Well, what's interesting about Verlander is You'd look at it and normally be like, oh, that sucks a lot of lefties against a righty. What do you got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. His numbers against lefties are absolutely absurd this season. What's his K rate? 30, 36%? Yeah, 36% strikeouts against lefties. He gives us some power, but his whip is. Here's what I'm talking about, Chris. This is the big thing. He's given up 1.5 home runs per 9 to lefties, but he has a .74 whip and a
Yeah.
3.3 xFIP. So sure, I'll give up a solo shot with no one on base. I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, if you're getting 9 or 10 strikeouts, you're going 7 innings, and you're going to give up 1 or 2 solo shots. It's the least of your worries.
Exactly. Uh, do you have any interest in hitters from this game against Mike Minor, who appears to have, to some extent, I don't want to say he's, well, no, I will say it. It's very possible that Mike Minor's regressing a little bit, but he's also, his last 2 matchups were the Angels and Houston, so I'm willing to give him a pass there. 2 of the toughest matchups in the league, and now he's got Houston for back-to-back starts.
I really like Houston tonight, just because I think they're going to go under the radar, and I think Minor at times now is regressing, like you said. He's starting to give up runs, starting to give up some power, and Houston's pretty solid against left-handed pitching. They rank top 5 in WOBA and WRC plus at home against lefties. They just have a lot of great hitters in the lineup, and it's hard to not roster them. So, and when they're a night where they go unowned and they do have the potential to get a lot of runs, this is a matchup that I want to go and roster them strictly based off that.
All right. Makes sense to me. If you haven't checked out Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports yet, they are the sponsor of the Deeper Dive, and we're happy to have them with us. It's very easy to get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports Rewards points simply by signing up, depositing, and playing. You can use those YSRPs as good as cash to win money, play money on the site, and then, of course, withdraw that money if you so choose. Let me tell you how to do this. Make it very simple on you. If you've yet to sign up and you want to, here's how you do it to get your free money on Yahoo. Go to awesemo.com. We can't put links in the YouTube chat anymore. It sucks. Bear with us. It's still a simple process. Go to the Spotlight Hitters article, and you'll see the link right at the top before the actual body of the article begins. It's that simple. Click that. By the way, content is free. So is a lot of other content on awesemo.com, including all of our seasonal fantasy football stuff, which I highly suggest you check out. It's been a lot of fun writing it, and I think you guys will enjoy it. So yeah, go to the Spotlight Hitters article, click on the Yahoo link. It's free, should be on the homepage. If it's not, it's under the MLB articles tab. And sign up. Use the sign-up code AWESEMO if you would like to as well. And play and win money over there at Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, where they have the lowest management fees in the industry, and no one's putting 150 lineups into each and every contest. 10 entry max everywhere you go. It's Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, sponsor of the Deeper Dive. All right, man, let's do it. 4 to go. Arizona, Milwaukee. Milwaukee let me down yesterday. I swear to God, this team lets me down every time I'm high on them and they're low owned. Clockwork. But Ulyss Chassin, Taylor Clark was called up to start this one for Arizona. Did the Brewers get to him today, or do we see another disappointing outing from them?
Man, I would love for the Brewers to get around to him, but it's just like you said. The reason why I don't want to roster Milwaukee is because I just can't seem to pinpoint them when they want to go off.
Tell me about it.
And it's so annoying that I just don't want to have to go through that frustration again. So do I like the matchup? Absolutely. Do I think that there's a lot of potential there for Taylor to get rocked? Yeah, I do. It's just hard to know if this is the night that's going to happen.
It's very difficult. I don't do I think this is a pretty good spot for them? Yeah, I do. But another thing is, my God, the pricing on them is insane. If you just want to play Yelich alone, you're paying for 3 batters in one. So it's Castanera is what, 5,200 on DraftKings. So I mean, really specifically on DraftKings, a few of these guys are very expensive. I don't imagine you're going to pitching here. Do you have any interest in Arizona against Ulyss Chassin?
No, not too much. This is one of those games where it just doesn't get me excited like other matchups.
Okay. I'm with you, honestly. I don't see much here. And
Yeah.
we've already covered a lot of teams that we like. Like I said, more than half of the teams on this slate, 17 of 28 have totals of 5 or higher. So, being at 5-1 or 5-2 doesn't make you special, especially, in July of 2019. The Dodgers and Miami Marlins are at Dodger Stadium. Hyun-Jin Ryu is a monster favorite. He is a 308 favorite, biggest on the day. The Marlins have the lowest total on the slate. I gotta tell you, I'll save my opinions for after we get your take. Where are you on Ryu today?
I like Ryu, but then also part of me is like, this is going to be a night where the Marlins do the same shit that they always do and somehow uh, score these pinky little runs against an ace, because
They
it's been
always
happening a
do.
little bit lately. But I think Ryu is in a great matchup. I mean, he's at home. He's had a phenomenal year. Marlins are just not good. As we all know, they strike out a ton as well. And the one thing though the only thing that concerns me is the fact that Miami's a little bit more stingy against left-handed pitching compared to right-handed pitching. So
You
we
mean
could
from a
see
strikeout standpoint?
from a strikeout perspective, yeah, they're striking out. I think a 10% difference
Yeah, it's
compared to
big.
right-hand. It's huge. And what concerns me is Miguel Rojas going to get into these high pitch counts like he always does, and then gets these little bloop singles, and then Gary Cooper and so on and so forth. So that's the only reason why I get hesitant. I really like Ryu, but I know that there's a huge probability that this happens because they are stingy at the plate when it comes to left-handed pitching.
Yeah, so here's my problem. If Verlander needs to throw 115 pitches, Verlander throws his 115 pitches. If Shane Bieber needs to throw, however many pitches it is to get out of the seventh inning, he's gonna do it. Shit, he's thrown 100 plus pitches now in 6 or 7 straight games. He's gonna get it done. Um, Same with Degrom. The problem I have with Ryu is once in a while you'll see him get up there, but it's also very possible that he leaves this game after 6 innings with 88 pitches. And with his price point being so high compared to everybody else, I don't think I'm going to be there today. As good as he's been this season, like if Ryu won the Cy Young Award, I would not have any issues with it at all. I still don't think he has the same ceiling as DeGrom, Bieber, or Verlander, which is why at a similar price point, higher than some of them, I'm not really on him.
Yeah,
Uh,
from a K rate perspective, he's not as appealing as Verlander or Bieber. And because I mean you're going to get your strikeouts from them. It's kind of like the NBA superstars; they get their points, right?
yeah,
You're going to get strikeouts from these top tier pitchers. Ryu, on the other hand, could go 5, 6 innings, like you said, if he gets into a high pitch count, and only throw 4, 5, maybe 6 strikeouts. And if he gives up 2 runs and a couple hits there, you're not hitting value. So that's one concern, and I could definitely see it from that perspective because he doesn't get into these pitch counts that go over 100, which Verlander and Bieber both get.
right, for sure. And honestly, if I'm more worried about the matchup and I want a pitcher facing a team that's bad and I want a really good park, there's always Jacob DeGrom against the Giants. So
Yeah,
uh,
that's a matchup too. That I think Degrom's in a great spot tonight.
he is, and we'll get there right after this. Do you have any interest in Dodger bats against Gallen?
Yeah, I think the Dodgers are in a great position tonight to go off. They are the best hitting team at home against right-handed pitching, and they're going to fill the lineup with great lefties, which I love. I love Peterson tonight. Love Verdugo, Muncy, Bellinger, and love Seager. So I'm looking at all lefties tonight from the Dodgers tonight against Gallen.
Okay. Yeah, I like that too. One thing I was surprised with was that they were actually going to have some ownership, but that's come down a lot throughout the day. It was a lot higher earlier, so I like them a lot more now. I agree with you. Seattle and the Angels, we've got 2 to go, making good time here. So here's my thing on this one. Mike Leake might go out there and throw some decent games in terms of run prevention, but a lot of times if he gives up 3 runs, he's probably giving up 3 home runs. He just has a massive issue when it comes to power. The only thing that sucks here is, once again, when you're looking at the park and the weather, in Seattle,
Mhm.
I have a very tough time comparing it to everything we have in the East Coast and even the Midwest today.
Yeah, and the thing is here is Leak, he has the potential to just get rocked. I mean, he gives up a lot of bombs. And the reason why I wouldn't roster Leak anyway is because I think the Angels are one of the most disciplined teams at the plate. They don't strike out a lot, and they put the ball in play. So this could be a very troublesome matchup, regardless of ballpark. I like some of the Angels' bats here. I definitely like Trout tonight as a one-off if you could fit him in your lineup.
Okay. Yeah, look, I like them. I just don't know how I can prioritize them
Yeah,
with some of the other stuff. I do love Trout. I like Otani. I wish this was at Angel Stadium and not in Seattle. But
right.
if there was anything, it would certainly be these Angel bats here. One of the highest. They may have the highest WRC plus against righties on the year, tied with Minnesota last I looked. I don't really have any interest in Seattle here. Do you?
No, not too much interest here. I know that I don't know if they're still one of the top. It was weird because earlier I saw it was Seattle or someone, I think it was Seattle as like a high value team, but they've dropped now significantly. They were in the mid range at like 5%, but they've kind of cheered off now to 2%.
Yeah, value on FanDuel is up there around like fourth highest. So
Yeah.
I guess that's viable to some extent. And then 6.5% on Yahoo, which is also the fourth highest, not nearly as much on DraftKings. Let's close it out, Chris. New York Mets, San Francisco Giants, Jacob Degrom, Tyler Beatty. I'll throw you a curveball here. I have interest in both of these pitchers, depending on what the Mets lineup looks like.
Yeah, I could definitely see how that could roll out. If they're not throwing out a lot of lefties and it's a lot of heavy righty
Exactly.
lineup, I think I would go that way because Beatty is pretty solid against right-handed pitching.
He's got like 27% strikeouts against them. Yeah.
Yeah, he's high up there in the 20% percentile of striking out batters. But I think the biggest thing is he's holding right-handers to under the league average with a 121 ISO. So with no power and we're in a ballpark that favors him
Right.
tremendously, Beatty is in a good matchup tonight, and he's at a price point where there are strikeouts there available for him to get in that lineup.
Yeah. And if anyone's wondering, I'm talking about, I know you're not going to have two lefties in the lineup, but if you have four instead of five, I actually would think that makes a difference. If you have more righties than lefties, I like that. All right. We're about out of time here. We are out of time. I don't imagine either of us are on bats. Tell me where you rank Jacob DeGrom, and then we'll head out, turn it over to the guys at Live Before Lock.
Yeah, Jacob Degrom, I would say top three pitcher tonight. He's I think you mentioned in the deep dive, he's got the second highest swinging strike rate. Uh, Giants bats don't concern me. Great ballpark. Weather will be in his favor. I like Degrom tonight.
All right. So do I. It's been fun, man.
Yeah.
It's been fun. We'll do this again sometime.
Yes. Yes, sir.
All right, Live Before Lock's coming up next. Jake and Josh. Hey, before you head out, hit us with a thumbs up if you like the content, you like the deeper dive, you want to see more of it. It helps us out a lot. We greatly appreciate it. And it just simply makes you a better person. Subscribe and hit the notification bell as well. Have a great weekend. We'll see you back here on Monday on the deeper dive. Adam, myself, and the man, the myth, the legend, Alex Baker, Awesome-O. We'll see you after the weekend. Good luck tonight.